The conference room fell silent as my father's face drained of color. The food never arrived, he whispered into the phone, his voice cracking with panic. 20 relatives shifted uncomfortably around the empty Thanksgiving table, whispers spreading like wildfire. My aunt's eyes found mine across the room, confusion, then dawning realization. I leaned back against my kitchen counter miles away and replied with practiced calm, "Oh, I didn't think you needed anything from me." The silence that followed was so absolute I could hear my father's breathing change. The guests' whispers intensified. My mother's voice in the background. What does she mean by that? The family I wasn't good enough to be invited to, but was good enough to finance, was about to learn what exclusion really felt like. Thanksgiving has always been sacred in my family. The one day when we gather under the pretense that old resentments don't exist, stuffing ourselves with food and drowning awkward silences in wine. I'm the oldest of 3 siblings, but growing up, I was less a daughter and more a third parent. Cooking, cleaning, babysitting. My younger siblings were the golden children, while I was the reliable workhorse. I moved out the moment I could, but still showed up for holidays because, well, family. The betrayal crystallized 1 week before Thanksgiving. I was scrolling through our family group chat when my aunt posted, "Can't wait to see everyone." I replied instantly, "Same, looking forward to it." The chat went eerily silent. My phone buzzed hours later, not in the group chat, but a private message from my cousin. "Are you actually coming? Your parents told everyone you weren't invited." My stomach tightened into a cold, hard knot as I called my mother. She dodged, deflected, then finally admitted between practiced sighs, "We decided to keep it small this year, just immediate family." The words struck like physical blows. "But I am immediate family," I said, my voice rising with each word. Silence then. We just thought it would be easier. Less tension. I hadn't argued with anyone in months. The only tension was my recent refusal to clean up my siblings' messes. Still clutching my phone, I methodically confirmed what I already knew. Yes, my brother was invited. Yes, my sister and their spouses. Yes, aunts and cousins too. "Well," my mother said, her voice artificially light, "we didn't think you'd mind?" Only then did I remember my father had asked me to chip in for the meal. Not only had I paid for the entire turkey and all the desserts, I'd actually placed the orders myself at the butcher shop and bakery my mother loved. All under my name. They hadn't just excluded me, they'd used me. I canceled everything with a single phone call. The butcher refunded me immediately. The bakery hesitated, but relented. Then I waited, knowing exactly how this would play out. Thanksgiving Day, 12:17 p.m. My phone lit up with my father's name. I let it ring 4 times before answering. The food never arrived. Panic made his voice crack. I could hear the chaos in the background. My mother's shrill questions, relatives murmuring. I injected confusion into my voice. Maybe you should check with whoever placed the order." "You placed the order," he snapped. Did I? I let the silence stretch uncomfortably. "Oh well, I didn't think you needed anything from me." An hour later, my cousin's text painted the scene. No turkey, no desserts. Every store closed or sold out. My sister in tears because she'd brought a date she wanted to impress. My mother crying in the bathroom. My father ashen-faced as my uncle asked loudly, "Wait, wasn't your daughter supposed to bring the turkey?" People connecting dots. Whispers spreading. Realization dawning. 3 days later, a group text from my mother. "We really missed you at Thanksgiving. Hope we can put this behind us." Not an apology, a burial attempt. I didn't respond. My aunt called to tell me several relatives had confronted my parents about how they'd treated me. For once, they had to face consequences. But my mother was never one to accept blame. Within days, a new narrative emerged. I was difficult, unstable, had ruined Thanksgiving on purpose. My father called twice before I finally answered. "I don't know what you were trying to prove," he said, voice tight with controlled anger. but you embarrassed your mother." I barked out a laugh that surprised even me. "That's funny. I thought she didn't even want me there." His sigh was heavy, rehearsed. "We made a mistake, okay? But what you did was low. Lower than uninviting me after making me pay for the food?" Heat rose in my chest. "You should have said something if you had a problem." "You're being dramatic," he attempted. "It wasn't even that big of a deal." The blood pounded in my temples. "Not a big deal? Then why are you calling me about it, Dad?" I hung up, my hands trembling so badly I nearly dropped the phone. That night, my cousin texted, "You officially started a war." My mother was spinning a victim narrative, claiming I'd always been difficult and this just proves it. Christmas loomed like a battlefield on the horizon. I had no plans to attend until my aunt called. "Your mom is telling everyone you can't handle being around family. That's why you're skipping Christmas." She paused. "And your dad is saying he tried to fix things, but you're too stubborn." I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles went white. "Oh, hell no." On Christmas Eve, I arrived fashionably late to my parents' house. The moment I walked in, the atmosphere shifted like a needle scratching across a record. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. My mother's smile froze. My father's drink halted halfway to his lips. My sister blinked rapidly as if seeing an apparition. "Hey," I said casually, unwinding my scarf. "Merry Christmas." After the shock came my mother's forced smile. "Oh, you made it." "Of course," I replied sweetly. "Wouldn't miss it." Then I stepped aside to reveal my plus one. My grandmother. My mother's mother. The color drained from my mother's face. Years ago, they'd had a catastrophic falling out. My mother had tried to keep us from seeing our grandmother, essentially erasing her from our lives. But I had stayed in touch, and when Grandma heard about Thanksgiving, she was livid. "Oh my," Grandma said, looking around with exaggerated wonder. "It's been so long since I've been here. What lovely decorations, dear." My mother looked like she might faint. The dinner that followed was gloriously uncomfortable. My grandmother was in rare form, examining the stuffing with theatrical interest before asking, "Oh, is this the store-bought kind?" I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. A week later, strange messages started arriving from relatives, some concerned. I heard there was some misunderstanding. "Hope you're okay?" Others accusatory. "I never thought you'd be so cruel to your own family." My aunt explained. My mother was now telling everyone I was unstable, that my behavior at Christmas proved it. She was worried about me and thought I might be having a breakdown. The realization hit me like a physical blow. She couldn't stand that I'd exposed her, so she was trying to undermine my credibility. Make me the problem so she wouldn't have to face being wrong. I called my grandmother, who confirmed my mother's campaign. "Unfortunately, she's been calling everyone saying she's worried about you." I let out a bitter laugh. "You know that's not true, right?" "My dear," she said sharply. I knew it wasn't true before she even opened her mouth. That night, I crafted a simple message to the family group chat. "Hey everyone, just wanted to clear up some confusion. I'm doing great. No breakdowns, no drama. It's been an interesting holiday season, but I'm genuinely in a good place. Hope you all are too. Wishing everyone a happy new year." It was impossible to twist, impossible to argue with. The digital equivalent of smiling and waving while my mother's story burned to ash. Then something unexpected happened. My brother texted, "Hey, can we talk?" We hadn't spoken in months. When I called, his voice was hesitant, almost apologetic. "Look, I don't agree with what Mom did." I nearly dropped the phone. "You don't?" He admitted in halting sentences that he'd started seeing through her manipulations. "She's really good at twisting things." Thanksgiving had felt wrong to him, but Christmas was the breaking point. I didn't say anything because you know how she gets. Yeah, I said softly. I know. I'm not saying I handled it right, he continued, but I just wanted you to know I don't think you're crazy. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear those words until tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. In that moment, I understood something fundamental had shifted. Mom was losing her grip. First, my aunt had sided with me, then my grandmother, and now my brother was beginning to see the truth. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. Mom. I almost ignored it, but something, curiosity perhaps, or the need for closure, made me answer. Hello, I said. Her voice was ice. We need to talk, in person. About what? A pause, then barely controlled fury. Your little stunt completely humiliated me. There it was, not hurt me, or made me sad, but humiliated me. Always about appearances. Sunday dinner, 6 p.m. Your father and I expect you here. She hung up. I almost didn't go, but my aunt convinced me. Just hear them out. You don't have to forgive them, but make them say it to your face. Sunday evening, I walked into my parents' house. The tension was a physical presence. Dad stood rigid by the table. Mom sat at the head, arms crossed, eyes sharp. My sister pretended absorption in her phone. My brother looked nervously between us all. Mom exhaled sharply. Do you have any idea what you've done? I tilted my head. Which part are you mad about? The turkey, the Christmas surprise, or the fact that people don't believe your story? She scoffed. You're so dramatic. Dad finally spoke. Your mother is hurt, and you've done nothing but make her look bad. She made herself look bad, I countered. I just let people see it. My mother's face flushed. The truth? You mean your version of events? Because in my version, you abandoned your family, refused to let things go, took revenge over a simple misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? The word hung in the air. We never meant to exclude you. We just thought it would be easier. And then you had to go and ruin Thanksgiving, embarrass me in front of everyone. My brother, of all people, interrupted. Mom, he said quietly, you did exclude her. She turned sharply. Oh, don't you start. No, he said, firmer now. You told everyone she wasn't coming. You let her pay for the food and then shut her out. That was wrong. My father shifted uncomfortably. Oh, we should have handled it better. Mom glared at him. What is that supposed to mean? He hesitated. Maybe she has a point. The admission stunned everyone, but I wasn't finished. You didn't just leave me out, I said, meeting my mother's eyes. You tried to make me look crazy. You told people I was unstable, having a breakdown. Why, Mom? Why go that far? And then she blurted it out. Because I was embarrassed. Silence descended. She blinked as if surprised by her own admission. I was embarrassed, okay? When people started asking why you weren't at Thanksgiving, I didn't know what to say. I didn't think it was a big deal at first, and then suddenly people were looking at me like I was the bad guy. So yes, I panicked. I spun the story. She swallowed hard. I couldn't stand being the bad guy. I stared at her. So instead, you made me the bad guy. She didn't answer. My dad looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. My brother sat stone-faced. My sister, who had been quiet the whole time, finally muttered, "Wow." Everything settled in that moment. The lies, the manipulation, the selfishness. For the first time, I saw my mother for what she really was. Not some untouchable force, just a woman afraid of looking wrong. I stood up. I'm done. I don't need an apology because I don't think you're capable of giving a real one. But I need you to know I'm done. My mother flinched like I'd slapped her. Wait, no. You did this, I cut her off. You shut me out, and when it backfired, you tried to rewrite history. You made me the villain so you wouldn't have to face the truth. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I turned to my dad. I appreciate that you tried, but you let it happen. And that hurt too. For once, he had no response. Then I looked at my siblings. My sister looked guilty. I should have said something sooner, she admitted. My brother gave a small nod. Me too. It didn't fix anything, but it was something. In the weeks that followed, I distanced myself. Mom sent hollow texts. Can we move past this? I ignored them. My aunt checked in often, supportive as ever. My grandmother sent a heartfelt letter telling me how proud she was. But the real surprise came from my brother. One evening, he texted, "Can we grab coffee?" We met up and talked for hours. I think I spent so long keeping the peace that I didn't realize how much damage she was doing, he admitted. Yeah, I said quietly. I get it. And somehow through everything, I realized I wasn't alone. Not entirely. Not anymore. If you've ever been the family scapegoat, the one who sees the dysfunctional patterns while everyone else plays along, you know this hollow feeling in your chest. That moment when you realize the people who should love you unconditionally have placed conditions you can never meet. You know the gaslight flicker of, that never happened, and you're too sensitive, and why do you always make everything about you? Standing up to family manipulation is terrifying. It's easier to swallow the hurt, to keep showing up, to play your assigned role. But sometimes the bravest thing isn't forgiveness. It's holding firm to your boundaries, even when they label you difficult for having them at all. The empty chair at their Thanksgiving table wasn't my failure. It was my first step toward freedom. And if you're nodding along to this, perhaps it's time to examine which tables in your life are worth sitting at and which ones are keeping you hungry for a love that will never be served.